Hey kids, we're going to take a quick look at Thursday's assignment on decimal division. It's task card set 3. It is another Google slide, and there are about 7 of these task cards in that set to do. There are 4 types of problems that you're going to come across, and we're going to quickly go over those to make sure that everybody is getting that decimal point in the right place so that your answers are accurate. Alright, so the decimal type problems that you're going to run into are going to be ones that are a whole number divided by a whole number. Well, that seems like the normal kind of problem, except when you have a remainder at the end of them, you want to write them in decimal form. Alright, so if you were looking at the problem on task card 22, it's 51 divided by 6. So 51 goes in the box. We're dividing by 6. Go ahead and write that down, and then you can just put this in your Google slide when you start working on it. Alright, I know that 6 will go into 51 8 times, because 8 times 6 is 48. So I'm going to put an 8 up above the 1. 8 times 6 is 48. I'm going to subtract that, and then 11 minus 8 is 3. I have 3 left over. Now, I don't want a remainder with this type of problem. I want a decimal remainder part. So I'm going to put a decimal point up here and annex a 0. I'm going to bring down that 0 and make that 30. And then 6 goes into 35 times, leaving us with 0. Okay, now my answer is not going to be 85. If I have a decimal in that dividend there, I'm going to go straight up, and my answer is going to be 8.5. So 51 divided by 6 is going to be 8 and 5/10. All right, the next type of a whole number divided by a whole number might be something that looks like this. Now this is task card 23. So it is 7 divided by 28. The 7 goes in the box. So what do you do in this situation? I know 28 is not going to go into 7. So I'm going to remember that there is a decimal point after 7, and I can annex a 0. So I've made this into a decimal number. And I'm going to say 28 goes into 70 how many times? Well, it's going to go about 2 times. 2 times 28 is 56. I'm going to subtract that. And I get 14 left. Now, I don't want a 14. I'm not going to write 14. So I'm going to annex 0 and bring it down. Now I want to know how many times does 28 go into 140? Well, I know that's going to be about 5 times. 5 times 28 is 140, so that's going to work for me. So I'm going to put my 5 up here in my dividend. I'm going to subtract out the 140 and have 0 left over. And my answer is not 25. I have a decimal point inside this box, and so I need to go straight up on that decimal point. So my answer is 0.25. All right, the next kind of problem you need to know how to do is when you have a decimal number divided by another decimal number. And this is a special situation. When you have a decimal number out here in the divisor, you're going to have to shift over your decimal point to make it into a whole number. So here on task 24, you have 1.54 divided by 200ths. All right, now I want to make this 200ths. I see it's a decimal number, so anytime the decimal is over here outside of the box, I'm going to have to shift it. All right, and I can see I'm going to have to shift this 2 place value positions to make it into the whole number 2. Since I've shifted this 2 place value positions, I made it 100 times larger, and I need to do the same thing inside my dividend. 1, 2, and then go up on the decimal. All right, now I'm going to divide this like the whole number 2 going into 154. I know 2 will not go into 1, but it will go into 15 7 times. So I'm going to put a 7 in my quotient. 7 times 2 is 14. I'm going to subtract and have 1. I'm going to bring down that 4, and then 2 goes into 14 7 times. You want to make sure that you're putting these digits in the right place in your dividend. 7 times 2 is 14, and I have 0 left over. Okay, if you need to slow this down or stop it in order to write this down and follow through with these steps, do that. Okay, the next type of problem that you're going to have is a decimal number divided by a whole number. On task 21, you have that exact situation. You have 801 and 6/10 divided by the whole number 8. All right, now this is dividing by a whole number, so I don't have to worry about shifting those decimal points. I know I'm just going to take this decimal point and go straight up. This problem is a little bit tricky because there's a couple of zeros that appear in this quotient. All right, so do this one very carefully when you get to task 21. All right, 8 goes into 8 one time. Easy enough. 1 times 8 is 8. Subtract that and I get 0. All right, now I bring down my next digit. My next digit is a 0, but I still have to say, okay, 8 goes into that 0 times. 0 times 8 is 0, and I subtract and I have 0. All right, now I'm going to bring down my next digit. All right, my next digit is a 1. So now I still have a similar situation. 8 goes into 1 0 times. So put a 0 again in my quotient. 0 times 8 is 0. I'm going to subtract that and I have a 1. Now I still have one more digit to carry down. I'm going to bring it down and that's going to be 6. And I'm going to say 8 goes into 16 2 times. I'm going to put a 2 in the quotient. 2 times 8 is 16. So I have 0 left over. Now this number, this quotient, is about 100. And that makes sense because this is about 800. 800 divided by 8 would be about 100. So that answer makes sense for that problem. Okay, the last type of situation you're going to have is when you have a whole number divided by a decimal number. And in task 20, you have that situation. You have the whole number 252, and you're dividing it by 3 thousandths. All right, so what do you have to do in this one? Well, since this is a decimal number as our divisor, I need to make it into a whole number to work the division. I can see I'm going to have to shift my place value position over 3 places. 1, 2, 3. All right, I have to do the same thing to my dividend so that I can keep the problem an equivalent division problem. My decimal point is at the end of the whole number. So if I'm going to move that over 3 places, I'm going to have to annex 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go up. So now I'm going to be dividing 3 into a pretty long number. And I'm going to start with saying, will 3 go into 2? No. Will 3 go into 25? Yes. So I know I'm going to have 5 digits in my answer. And you're going to walk through each step of that problem just like you would a regular long division problem being divided by the whole number 3. All right, good luck on this lesson. Do your best work. Friday we will finish up on working with decimal numbers, and next week we're moving on to geometry. So make the most of this. Any questions, email, and we can get it worked out. All right, enjoy this lesson. Bye-bye.